He pointed at the door of my own living room and told me to get out. Me. The woman who owned every brick, every nail, every blade of grass outside. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled, because he had no idea what was about to happen. I want you to picture something. A house. Not a mansion. Nothing grand. Just a house. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that smells like cinnamon and old wood, a living room with a window that catches the afternoon sun like it was made for reading. That house was mine. I bought it 32 years ago. Back when my late husband, Thomas, and I signed those papers, our hands were shaking. Not from fear. From hope. We poured everything into those walls. Savings, sweat, late-night arguments about paint colors that seemed so important at the time. Thomas passed 11 years ago. Cancer. Fast and cruel. One day he was complaining about being tired, and 6 months later I was standing in this house alone, listening to a silence so loud it hurt my ears. But I didn't sell. I couldn't. That house was the last conversation I had with him. Every room was a sentence he never finished. So I stayed, and I made my peace with the quiet. And then, Rachel came home. Rachel is my daughter. My only child. She was always the bright one. Quick mind, quick tongue, quick to leave home the second she could. She married Derek when she was 26, and I remember thinking at the wedding that he had a handshake like a man trying to convince you of something. They moved in 4 years ago. A temporary arrangement, they said. Derek had lost his job. Something about a restructuring at the firm. Rachel was between positions too. They needed a place to land. You know this house has room, I told her on the phone. You know you're always welcome. I meant it. I still mean it. A mother's door doesn't close. But here's what I didn't say, what I didn't even know yet. There's a difference between opening your door and handing over your keys. And somewhere in those 4 years, I went from being the woman who owned this home to the woman who just lived in it. Quietly. In the corner. Like a piece of furniture nobody noticed until it was in the way. Let me tell you how it happens. Because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens like erosion. Slow, quiet, and you don't notice the cliff is gone until you're standing at the edge. First, the living room. That was my room. The afternoon sun, the reading chair, the window overlooking the garden where Thomas planted those rose bushes the year before he died. That room was mine the way a cathedral belongs to someone who prays in it. But Derek started claiming it. First, just for football on Sundays. Then for working late on his laptop. Then his gaming setup appeared. The TV got bigger, the couch got moved, and suddenly my reading chair was pushed into the corner like an afterthought. Then the kitchen. Rachel started cooking, which was kind. Truly, I appreciated it. But slowly, the pantry shifted. My things moved to the back. My tea, the loose-leaf chamomile I've been drinking since I was 20, replaced by protein powders and energy drinks that looked like they were designed in a laboratory. Then the money. I was paying for everything. The mortgage. The property taxes. The insurance. The groceries. The internet. Their phones. I didn't even notice the scale of it because they were family. And you don't keep a ledger with family. But Derek was keeping a different kind of ledger. The one where he counted what he could take. Here's what people don't tell you about disrespect. It doesn't arrive with a slam. It arrives with a whisper. It arrives so softly that you question whether you heard it at all. Derek never yelled. Not at first. He just rearranged the hierarchy. Margaret, could you keep it down, I'm on a call? Said while I was making tea in my own kitchen. Margaret, the living room's occupied. Maybe try the sunroom? Said about my living room. My chairs. My window. Margaret, we're having people over Friday. You don't have to stay in your room, but it might be easier. Easier for whom? And Rachel. Rachel said nothing. Not a word. She'd look at me with those eyes. My eyes, same color, same shape, and she'd look away. Like someone watching a car accident through their fingers. I told myself, she's just keeping the peace. She's just surviving. She's just. But here's the truth I was avoiding. Rachel wasn't keeping the peace. Rachel was choosing a side. She just didn't want to admit it out loud. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my day for the chamomile and the crossword. My small ritual. My small claim on my own life. I was in the reading chair, the one that was still mine, pushed against the window. The afternoon light was just perfect. Golden and soft, The way it gets in autumn when the leaves outside turn everything amber. Derek walked in. He didn't knock. He didn't pause. He just stood there, filling the doorway like he owned the frame. "Get up," he said. I looked at him over my glasses. "Excuse me. I need the room." "Get up." I set down my crossword. "Derek, I'm reading. There are other rooms." I said get up. And then he said it. The words that changed everything. "Get out, old woman. This isn't your room anymore." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of 32 years of mortgage payments. Full of rose bushes planted by a dying man. Full of every quiet surrender I'd made in the name of keeping the peace. And Rachel. She was standing in the hallway behind him. Watching. She didn't say a word. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't cry, not yet. Something in me went very still. The way the air goes still before a storm, but in reverse. This was the stillness after. The clarity. I stood up. I folded my crossword. I placed my glasses on the arm of my chair, and I walked past Derek without looking at him. I walked past Rachel without speaking to her. I went to my bedroom. I packed a single bag. A change of clothes. My reading glasses, the real ones, not the reading pair. My phone. My charger. And one thing Derek had never thought to look at, never thought to care about, because to him, paperwork was just paperwork. The property documents. Every deed. Every title. Every record. All in a fireproof box in my closet, right next to the photo albums he never opened and the letters from Thomas he never asked about. I called a cab. I walked out the front door. I locked the gate behind me. The downtown hotel I paid was nothing the lock special. I'd installed, clean sheets, I still held, a window overlooking the parking lot, and the kind of silence that lets you hear yourself think. I spread the documents across the bed. And there it was, black ink on official paper, stamped and filed with the county recorder's office. Owner. Margaret Irene Dawson. Sole owner. No joint tenancy. No community property. No Derek. No Rachel. Just me. My name. My house. My law. Thomas had been thorough, that was his way. When he got sick, he restructured everything into my name alone. "So nobody can ever tell you to leave," he said from the hospital bed, 3 weeks before the end. I thought he was being dramatic. I thought he was just scared. He wasn't. He was being Thomas. Forward-thinking. Protective. Looking out for me from a place I couldn't yet see. I sat on that hotel bed and I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I thought about what I wanted. Not what was convenient for Derek. Not what kept Rachel comfortable. What I wanted. And what I wanted was my house. My life. My dignity. Thomas, you brilliant man. You left me more than memories. You left me a legal shield. The next morning, I called the only person outside this mess I could trust. Samuel Ward. Samuel had worked with Thomas years ago at the firm. Property disputes, title claims, the kind of law that sounds boring until it's your house on the line. He'd retired, but he still consulted. And he'd been at the funeral. He remembered the way Thomas talked about me, like I was the house itself, and everything else was just weather. "Margaret," he said, picking up on the second ring. "It's been too long." "It has," I said. "And I wish I were calling under better circumstances." I told him everything. The 4 years. The slow takeover. The money. The living room. The word, old woman. The silence from Rachel. Samuel listened. When I finished, there was a pause. But not the kind that leaves you uncomfortable. The kind that means someone is thinking carefully. "Margaret, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." "Go ahead. Do you want revenge, or do you want your house back?" "I want my house back," I said. "And I want my daughter to wake up." "Then here's what we're going to do." Samuel didn't waste time. Within 48 hours, one of his associates, a sharp young woman named Carla, drove to the house and served Derek and Rachel with a notice of termination of occupancy. In plain language, you have 30 days to leave a house you don't own, never owned, and have no legal right to occupy. Carla told me later that Derek's face was, well, she used the word incomprehensible. Like someone handed him a math problem in a language he didn't speak. He thought the house was the family home. He thought that living somewhere for 4 years gave you rights. He thought that being the loudest voice in the room made you the owner of it. He was wrong. Rachel, according to Carla, looked like she'd been hit by a quiet truck. Not the dramatic kind. The kind that backs into you slowly in a parking lot, and you stand there thinking, this isn't happening, even as the dent forms. I didn't feel triumph. I felt, the word I keep coming back to is steadiness. Like putting your foot on solid ground after walking on ice for 4 years. While Samuel handled the legal side, I handled the financial one. I called the bank. I'd been paying for a supplementary credit card, Derek's name on it, my account funding it. I closed it. Quietly. No announcement. No argument. Just a phone call and a pen stroke. The primary card, mine, with Rachel as an authorized user, I suspended. Not cancelled. Suspended. The difference mattered. A cancellation would feel like punishment. A suspension was a boundary. I'm not cutting you off forever, Rachel. I'm cutting off what was never yours to depend on. The mortgage. Still mine. Still paid. On time, like always. The property taxes. Mine. Paid. The groceries they'd been charging to my account. Over. The phone plans. Transferred to Derek's name. Let him figure out what a data plan costs. That night, in the hotel, I ordered room service for the first time in my life. A pot of coffee. Black. No sugar, no cream. Just the bitter, real taste of something that was entirely my own. It tasted like freedom. And it tasted like 40 years of not ordering room service because someone else might need the money more. That habit was over. Day 15. Samuel arranged a meeting. His office. Neutral ground. 4 chairs. Samuel at the head, me beside him. Derek and Rachel across the table. Derek looked like a man who'd just discovered gravity. Furious. Cornered. Disbelieving. Rachel looked fragile. Like a window someone had thrown a stone at, but the glass was still holding. Cracked, but holding. Samuel spoke first. Come. Professional. He laid out the facts. Margaret Dawson is the sole legal owner of the property. Derek and Rachel have no ownership interest. The occupancy is being terminated lawfully. The 30-day notice stands. Then Derek tried to argue. He used words like family home and reasonable expectation and you can't just. Samuel let him finish. Then he slid a folder across the table. Mr. Hayward, would you like to explain these? Inside the folder, Derek's credit card statements. Charges to Margaret's supplementary card, restaurants, electronics, a gym membership, subscriptions, all while he claimed to be looking for work. Bank records showing transfers from Rachel's account, funded by Margaret, into Derek's personal account. Derek's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Rachel's eyes moved from the folder to Derek. And for the first time in 4 years, I saw something in her face that wasn't avoidance. It was recognition. The stone had hit the window. The glass was still holding. But the cracks were running deep. After the meeting, Rachel asked to speak with me alone. Samuel stepped out. We sat across from each other in that conference room, and the silence between us was heavier than any words we'd ever shared. Finally, I spoke. Rachel, I love you. I have loved you since the moment I knew you existed. But I will not finance your silence anymore. I will not pay for the roof over a man who called me old woman in my own house while you stood there and said nothing. She flinched. I let her. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm telling you the truth. Rachel, something no one has done for you in a very long time. I have loved you since the moment I knew you existed. But I will not finance your silence anymore. You can build a life with him. I will not pay for the roof over a man with your own money, old woman, under your own in my own house, with your own name on the lease, and said nothing. She flinched. I let her. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm telling you the truth. Something no one has done for you in a very long time. Here's your choice. You can stay with Derek. You can build a life with him. But you will build it with your own money, under your own roof, with your own name on the lease. I will not fund it. I will not enable it. And I will not apologize for that. Or, I said, you can step away from whatever this is, and you can start over. I will help you, not with money, not with a room, but with something more valuable. I'll help you remember who you were before you let someone else decide the shape of your life. Rachel's eyes filled. Not with tears of self-pity. With the kind of tears that come when a door you didn't know was closed suddenly swings open and the light hits you. I don't know who I am without him, she whispered. I know, I said. But I know who you were before. And she was magnificent. It took Rachel 3 weeks. 3 weeks of the hardest work a person can do. Not the kind that pays rent, but the kind that rewrites the story you've been telling yourself. She filed for divorce. She opened her own bank account, a detail that sounds small until you realize she hadn't had one in 4 years. She found a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy. A studio with a window that faced east. She told me later that the first morning she woke up in that apartment, she lay in bed and listened to the silence, and for the first time, it didn't scare her. It felt like the house was listening to her. She got a job. Administrative work at a clinic. Not glamorous, not the career she'd imagined at 22. But it was hers. Every dollar, every hour, every tired evening. Hers. And somewhere in those 3 weeks, she came by the house. Not to move back in. Just to visit. We had tea. Chamomile. My tea, in my kitchen, at my table. And for the first time in 4 years, she sat across from me not as someone occupying my space, but as someone choosing to be in it. "Mom," she said, "I'm sorry I didn't speak up." "I know, sweetheart. I was so afraid of losing him that I lost you instead." "You didn't lose me. You just couldn't see me. I was right here." She smiled. A small one. But real. The kind that starts in the eyes before it reaches the mouth. Day 30. Derek moved out. Not gracefully. He cursed, he threatened. He made promises about lawyers he couldn't afford and battles he couldn't win. Samuel's associate stood by the door, calm as a sunrise, holding a copy of the notice. Derek took his things. His gaming equipment. His energy drinks. His unopened job applications. And he left. Rachel had already gone, moved to her studio apartment 2 weeks before. She'd taken only what was hers. Left the rest, as if the act of taking less was itself a kind of liberation. I walked through the house alone. The living room was empty. My reading chair was still in the corner, exactly where Derek had pushed it. I moved it back to the window. The afternoon light found it immediately, like a friend recognizing a friend. I opened every window. The breeze moved through the rooms like a cleansing breath. The house exhaled. And so did I. I made chamomile tea. I sat in my chair. I looked out the window at Thomas's rose bushes, and I said, out loud to no one, to everyone, to him, "I'm still here. And it's still mine." The following month, I invited 6 women over for tea. Women I knew from church, from the library, from the grocery store where I've been buying the same brand of chamomile for 30 years. We sat in my living room, and I told them the whole story. Not for sympathy. Not for applause. Because there's a kind of silence that women learn. A silence that says, don't make a fuss. Don't be difficult. Don't rock the boat. And I want to rock the boat. I told them, if you own something, own it. If your name is on the deed, don't let someone else draw the curtains. If you're paying the bills, don't ask permission to sit in your own chair. I told them, boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are clarity. And clarity is the most loving thing you can give someone, including yourself. I told them, it is never too late to remember that you are not the furniture in someone else's story. You are the author of your own. And then I poured the tea. And the afternoon light came through the window. And the rose bushes swayed. And the house, my house, held us all like it was built for exactly this moment. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been made to feel like a guest in your own life, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about women who found their way home. And if you're sitting in a room right now that doesn't feel like yours, check the deed. You might be surprised whose name is on it.